Chapter 6. The Vanguard promise. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Claire saying, "Good morning, Jack. I was hoping you would join me for lunch. The hospital food is not that bad. Today I asked for ramen. It's the only thing I can keep down. I have treatment today, and I would like someone with a sense of humor to keep me company." "Good morning, love," I replied. "I might know that guy you're speaking of. Who am I kidding? You had me at ramen. I'll see you at noon." I headed over to the lab. Malcolm said he had urgent news about Claire. I got there around 10:30 a.m. Everyone was working on various cases, not just Claire's but other patients from around the country. I went to the front desk. "Is Malcolm in?" I asked the receptionist. "Yes," she replied. "Also, Dr. Chris is here too. She just came back from London this morning, and they're expecting to see you." She handed me a visitor badge. I went to see Malcolm. "Why is Laura here?" I asked, feeling a little nervous. Laura could have called, but to fly in from London? Did they find a cure? I finally got into the building where Malcolm's office was. It was a hell of a walk, but I needed to think anyway. In my mind, I started pondering the good news. She could live again, have a life. Maybe we could reconnect. That would never work, I told myself. Stop lying to yourself. Thinking about last night, I could just retire. I could let everything that happened just lay to rest. I could finally live and continue with OMI, be a philanthropist. What the hell am I going to do with all this money when I die? I wonder if Bruce Wayne ever asked himself these questions. I finally reached Malcolm's door. It was open, and he and Laura were sitting there, talking and having breakfast. I knocked on the door, even though it was open. "Jack, you made it." Malcolm looked up. "Jack, it's good to see you," Laura said. "So, what's going on?" I asked them both, and they gave me a look that said I might want to sit down. "Do you want some coffee?" Malcolm asked. "Sure," I replied. Malcolm closed the door, and then he and Laura told me the news. "Does she know?" I asked both of them. Laura replied, "I told her this morning." "Why is she still getting treatment?" I asked. Malcolm said, "It's just slowing down the inevitable. She's trying to savor every moment she has left. It's her decision, Jack. We're doing everything we can to make her comfortable." "I know," I replied. Laura looked at me and asked for a favor. "It's about the vaccine. What are your thoughts?" I replied, "The OMI board of directors would need to see proof before I can even consider presenting it. Everyone trusts my judgment. They would need to see proof." "I can have all the proof you need," Malcolm said. "This would be a big benefit to the world." "Please consider it," Laura added. "I guess I better go see Claire for lunch," I said. I stood up and grabbed my crutches. What do I even tell her? Laura looked at me. "The truth, Jack. She deserves the truth." I looked at Malcolm. He nodded in agreement. I left the lab with a lot to consider. Claire's antibody cells are being used to make a vaccine. She wouldn't die in vain. She would be helping so many. But in return, we would be losing her. That was just the inevitable truth. I know Laura and Malcolm did all they could. That whole team, it costs a lot. Well, that's what you get for doing Randy. And I know I have to tell Claire the truth. She deserves that. I finally got to the hospital, running a little bit late. I arrived at Claire's door, which was open. I knocked anyway. She was sitting at the table, watching something on her tablet. It looked like the food had just arrived. Maybe I wasn't late after all. She looked up, her brown eyes full of joy, her brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. She was wearing a beautiful blue casual dress. "I think I might have the wrong room," I said. "Funny, I've been waiting for a handsome man to join me for lunch." "You look like the guy I've been waiting for," she replied. "Would you mind if I come in?" I asked. "Not at all, Mr. Wesley," she replied. We sat down, and the food smelled incredible, ramen and sushi. She had vegetables with pork belly, while mine was spicy, with eggs and cuts of beef. Claire looked happier and more relaxed than I had ever seen her. She kept looking out the window, kicking my feet joyfully, like couples do when they're in love. Claire never lost her playfulness and love for me, not a single day, and she was letting me know it. She deserved so much more. Her face was so content as she looked up at me. "I never thought I'd see you again," she said. "I wish I could have done so much more for you." I replied. She looked taken aback by that answer. Jack, what are you talking about? She asked. I took a deep breath and said, Claire, did you see Laura today? Yes, she told me the results, she replied, smiling like everything was okay. I asked, did Laura tell you I need a favor? Claire looked at me. Did Laura tell you? She did, I replied. Malcolm is going to present the results to the MI board of directors. This is really happening, Claire said. We'll see, I said. I'm sure we'll figure something out. Good, Claire said, because I won't sign off on it if the less fortunate have to pay. Claire, I said, you seem calm about your diagnosis. Jack, she replied, I've always known this was not going to end well for me. Even if there was a cure, I would still have problems in the long run. Everyone acts like I should be happy and grateful that I get to live another day. I'm just tired, Jack. I'm tired of the treatments. I'm tired of being in the fucking hospital. I'm tired of not being able to play with my son. I won't see him grow up. The truth is, Jack, I'm fucking scared. She started crying. Jack, she said tearfully, I wrote a letter to someone, not even knowing if this person was real, but somehow here I am, in a better hospital room with my very own doctors, trying to find a cure. The house and credit cards are all paid off. My brother and son will probably have enough money to last their lifetimes. Jack, Claire said, I asked for him to find you, and then somehow here you are, after being gone for so long. I don't know how, but here you are. Claire, I have a confession, I said. I don't know how to tell you this, but Claire, it's been me the whole time. The room, the doctors, and all your bills are taken care of. Claire, it's been me. Claire looked at me and laughed. You're so funny when you're trying to be serious. Who's Archangel then? She asked sarcastically. I'll show you. Do you trust me, Claire? She looked taken aback. Jack, what are you getting at? Claire, I replied. You said you trusted me. Have faith. Claire grabbed my hand and squeezed it tight. I looked at her. Please don't be afraid. I squeezed her hand a little tighter. I could feel her heartbeat racing. She was getting a little nervous and afraid. My love, relax. Can you close your eyes? Jack, what are you doing? Claire, you have to trust me. Claire closed her eyes. Do you remember prom? I asked. She said, yes. Good. I remember it like it was yesterday. Remember how you felt? Remember the smells, the people? I could feel her heartbeat beginning to relax as she took in a deep breath. I remember, she said. I asked you out because I lost a bet. I was supposed to dump you after prom. That was the bet. Once I got to know you, I couldn't go through with it. The girls called me a loser, but they ended up alone at prom. I never had a real boyfriend. I had boyfriends that never lasted long, and I began falling for you after your fight with Xavier. Before I knew it, it was prom. Good, I said. Do you remember our dance? Yes, she said. We weren't very good, but I didn't care about that. I was having a good time. I could feel her heartbeat pick up a little faster. Good, Claire. Think about that moment. Picture it in your mind. A moment later, we were back at prom. We were dancing, and Claire was resting her head on my shoulder. Claire looked at me. This feels real. That's because it is real. It's an old memory, a pretty strong one too. Jack, Claire asked, is this a dream? No, I said. Claire, I'm hosting your memory. Everything that happens has happened. Let us enjoy this moment together again. Claire grabbed me close and we danced. I don't know for how long. By the time I pulled us out of the trance, only a few minutes had gone by. Claire's hand was still holding mine. She was calm and relaxed, staring into my eyes. Jack, what are you? She said. I heard the question, but I didn't know how to answer. She squeezed my hand. Jack, answer me. I want to tell you so much. It would be better if I showed you, but not today. You need rest. I can handle the truth. I know, Claire, but we're both exhausted. And what I have to show is going to take a lot of strength and energy. We sat together for a couple of hours, enjoying the view and each other's company, just staring out the window. No words needed to be spoken. Megan replied a few moments later. Good morning. I talked it over with the kids. The attorney also recommends I get some Randar. How's New York this time of year? I responded, good morning. It's wonderful, actually. Well, when the mosquitoes aren't biting. Megan replied, exhaling. Jack, how is everything? You don't sound happy. I told Megan everything, well, not everything. She didn't need to know everything yet. I didn't think she would approve of her brother being on a vendetta, not to mention Archangel. I would tell her when the time was right. So that's the gist of it, Megan, I said. Wow, you can never have a relaxing day. Nope, I replied. Well, brother, there's only one thing you can do. What's that? I asked. Make every day count, Megan replied. Indeed, I said. The house is ready whenever you need it. We're still packing up, she said. Jack, are you sure about this? We can find another place. I'm sure, sister. That house is too big for one person. I won't even notice you, and the kids are there. Okay, Jack, if you say so, she said. I'll have a plane ready by Friday for you and the kids, I said enthusiastically. Megan replied, Jack, the kids have never been on a plane before in their lives. Oh, I replied. Well, it's private. Everything's going to be all right, sister. Oh, Jack, I wish that were true. Sister, sometimes you've got to have faith and just go with the flow, I said. She replied with a thumbs up. I just lay there thinking for a bit. Funny, I thought about what I had just said. You've got to have faith. I wondered if Malcolm had finished the proposal for the OMI board of directors. I was sure it wouldn't be hard to convince them. However, I didn't like to overrule anything unless I had to. I looked at the clock. It was about 11:30 a.m. I needed a shower and some breakfast. I remembered Claire mentioning something about Pete being at a birthday party today. I had told her I would stop by the hospital to see her after yesterday. I didn't know if she was ready to see the truth, and I didn't know if I was ready to be vulnerable, but I knew it was something I needed to do. I had been hiding the truth for far too long. What would she say? After a shower and breakfast, I arrived at the hospital around 1:30 p.m. Claire was already up, walking around in her room. She seemed lost in thought and didn't even notice that I had walked in. Hey, love. Everything all right? Claire stopped and looked at me. You didn't answer my question yesterday. I talked to Laura last night, she said. Jack, tell me it wasn't a dream. Tell me I wasn't hallucinating. She looked up at me, and I replied the best way I could. At that moment, I shrugged my shoulders. Claire stared at me. What the hell does that even mean? She continued, I spoke with Laura last night after you left. For a couple of hours, everything felt so vivid, so real. I tried to sleep, but all I could think about was prom. I have so many emotions flowing through my brain. Last night, Jack, please tell me what the hell is going on. I had already taken a seat, sitting in the window nook. Claire, what did Laura tell you? I asked. Claire joined me, sitting by my side. Not much. She just listened, almost like she was too afraid to tell me. She said that you're biotic and a Vanguard. I have no idea what the hell that even is. I took a deep breath. Do you remember anything about the trial? Claire responded, I try not to think about it. What does it have to do with any of this? Everything, I said. Claire, it's time you know the truth. You might want to lay down. What are you talking about? What are we doing? She asked. Claire, please trust me. Are you going to do that trance thing again? Yes, I replied. It's the only way I can show you. Claire lay down on the bed, got comfy and relaxed. I sat down next to her. She grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. I looked at her, and off we went. I pulled us out of the trance, and she saw everything, my entire life. She leaned up in her bed, her eyes full of tears. I gave her a tissue, and she began wiping her eyes. Jack, she said, you have to let go. You have such a great life. Not many people get this chance. I replied, I can't. These bastards need to be stopped. What they did is not excusable. They will never stop. They're too egotistical, arrogant, and power-hungry. They don't care who they hurt to achieve their goals. I wish the world could live in harmony. However, I know I can wish all I want, and that will never be. Claire looked at me and said, I know, Jack, but some battles aren't worth fighting. What do you wish to achieve? Yes, you could kill all of them and get your revenge, but at what cost? Someone else is just going to take their place. I looked at her. She was right. What was my goal? Vengeance? At this point, I didn't even know anymore. But if someone didn't step up and take them on, they wouldn't stop. Claire knew that, and I knew that. Claire, I replied, I wish this could all go away. I wish this never happened. I'm already in too deep. You saw that I'm a piece of shit, an asshole, but those people never deserved what happened to them. I began shaking. The trance had worn me out. Neither one of us had eaten. I looked at the clock. It was 2:30 p.m. I could eat, I said. She looked at me and replied, me too. We ordered some food from the cafeteria. As we began eating, Claire asked me if Xavier knew that I was a Vanguard. I replied that he knew I was biotic, especially after Echo 1. Did I know that we were fucking guinea pigs for Element Zero? No, I said. Like Xavier, the money was too good to pass up. We ran missions for the military, simple transport, protection ops, etc. That was the cause of his divorce. He was never home, and she was only after the money. Claire rolled her eyes. Please don't bring her up, she said. Sorry, I replied, taking another bite of my food. Did you ever find out what they were trying to accomplish with Element Zero? I swallowed my food, took a deep breath, and replied, yes, in fact, a few of my contacts confirmed it. I took another bite of my food. Don't leave me in suspense, she said. I swallowed and replied, they're developing a synthetic biotic serum. Pretty much biotic soldiers, like Captain America, I said. She looked at me. This isn't the comics, she replied. That's the best way I could explain it, I said. Echo 1 was just a breeding ground for testing. Anyone showing promise or reactions to Element Zero would be sent for further testing, and those who didn't would be exterminated. Hence us referring to Xavier and myself, Claire said. Yeah, but you are biotic now. Yeah, I replied. Neither one of us knew that. At the time, I was showing no symptoms. I was eating food with the locals. I was just doing transport and drop-off. The whole planet was a fucking lab. The locals knew it. What were they gonna do? We had bigger guns. They were pretty much prisoners on their own planet. Claire replied, what do you think happened? I responded, we were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Again, people get greedy. I remember lying on the ground with Xavier. I couldn't smell anything but my flesh, my face ripped apart. I don't remember much. I kept blacking out. I remember waking up with this giant robot standing over me like a shelter, Xavier yelling at it to run away. Hide, you son of a bitch. Hide. They're going to kill you. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a fucking hospital, handcuffed to a bed. I could smell the guy's breath. You fucked it all up, he said. I will fucking ruin you. Everyone was trying to cover it up. What are you talking about? Element Zero? Super soldiers? Biotics? A secret lab? Whatever do you mean? They knew how to play the media. And so began our trial. I don't have to tell you that story. Xavier went off and did his thing. I went off and did mine. Claire gave me a look. Jack, you could have told me the truth, she said. I looked at her and replied, and drag you down? Ruining your life too? No, I'm a piece of shit, a monster. I fucking killed people. My hands just keep getting dirtier and dirtier, Claire. I stood up. I'm a fucking coward. It took your letter to get me back here. You finally faced the truth. I truly earned my place in hell, but until that day comes, I will not let these bastards harm another innocent person. Claire stared at me for a bit, picking her words carefully. Finally, she responded, well, Jack, we're only human. Even Frankenstein's monster wasn't perfect, but people chose to see him as a monster before it was too late. I took a seat in the window nook. Claire could always find reasoning and beauty in anything. I thought maybe I could give us all up, forgive, forget. I don't even remember my next thought when there was a knock on the door. A young voice called out, Mommy, Mommy. It was Pete. He came running in and leaped onto her bed. He looked at me and said, Uncle Jack, what are you doing here? Claire replied, Mommy and Uncle Jack needed to see each other. How was the birthday party? Claire asked. Pete replied, it was fun. I went down a slide. It was bouncy. Did you have anything good to eat? Claire asked. Yup. Pizza, ice cream, and cake. It was chocolate. Sounds yummy, Claire replied. Did you give Darian his gift? Yeah. He likes comics too. We read it together. Nobody else liked comics at his birthday. We pretended to be superheroes. I bet being a superhero takes a lot of energy, Claire said. I'm really tired, Pete said, laying his head down on the extra pillow. Well, it looks like you're busy with this little guy. I better be going, Claire, I said. Jack, please think about what I said. It's never too late, Claire urged. I will, Claire, I replied. Before I could even walk out, Claire said, You're forgetting something. I looked around, confused. What the hell are you talking about? I asked. Claire looked at me, her eyes serious. You're forgetting about my kiss. I don't know how many more days I have, Jack. You owe me that. I walked over and kissed her. I had learned my lesson from last time. She touched my face gently. This time it was still painful that I walked out of the room and down the hall a little. Xavier was still messing around with the vending machine. Are you okay, brother? I asked. Xavier looked up. Oh, yeah, Jack, what's up? My drink stuck, he said. Well, have you tried? Bam. I slammed my body into the machine, and his drink fell. Yeah, I tried that, Xavier said. Apparently, you're the magic touch. You're welcome, I replied. I'm gonna get going. Xavier stopped me. Hey, I've been meaning to ask you. Me and Pete are gonna be home alone tomorrow. I'm gonna be making some barbecue, so if you could stop by, I would appreciate it. Pete's been wanting to show you his Legos and play a few video games. You promised. And I guess I'd like to catch up and have a drink or two. I looked at Xavier and said, Are you still making that old bullshit barbecue? Or what you call barbecue? Hamburgers, ribs, corn on the cob, hot dogs, baked beans, etc. Yeah, and if you don't fucking like it, you can go fuck yourself, he said. Well then, first round's on me, I said. Xavier grinned. I'll see you at noon tomorrow. It's a date, I replied. I'll wear something nice. Xavier laughed. I woke up the next morning to a text from Xavier. It read, Hey, asshole, are you still coming over? Pete and I can't eat all his food. I looked at my phone. It was 11:30 a.m. Shit, I said. Going into those biotic trances takes a toll on me. I texted Xavier back. Yes, honey, I'll be right over. What's your address again? Xavier replied, 927 Schmitz Avenue. Got it, I replied. My phone estimated that I should be there in about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic. I got out of bed, took a shower, and ordered an autonomous car. It only took a few hundred years to arrive. You could still drive, but if you were late to a meeting or just wanted to relax, it wasn't a bad option. I arrived a little quicker than expected. I guess traffic cleared up. It looked like there had been an accident or something on the road on the way there. The car pulled up in front of 927. It was a nice light blue color. I'm guessing Claire's favorite color. She liked the picket fence idea. The house was well kept. I didn't even get to ring the doorbell before a voice came through the doorbell speaker. You're here finally. The door's unlocked. I walked in and could smell the barbecue. Xavier and Pete had been up early. Xavier walked in from the back. It's about time you showed up, he said, giving me a hug that kind of threw me off. It was the first time we had hugged in a long time. He squeezed me hard, and I hugged him back. He seemed happier than usual. How many drinks have you had? I asked. None yet, he replied. Jack, I'm just happy to see you. I looked at his face. It was no lie. He was smiling. Come on, let's get some grub. Pete has already been digging into the deviled eggs. We went out back, and sure enough, there was Pete, stuffing his face with deviled eggs. Luckily, I made enough, Xavier said, staring at Pete's red face as he played with his handheld PC. Uncle Jack, you're here. We can finally eat, Pete exclaimed. You didn't have to wait on me, I said. Xavier looked at me. Come get a plate. We sat and stuffed our faces for quite some time, had a few drinks, and shared plenty of laughs. Of course, I spent time with Pete. We sat together, putting Legos together. Then someone challenged me to a good old game of Mario Kart. It's a game from the early 2000s developed by Nintendo, where you race each other around tracks using power-ups to get ahead in the race. Pete couldn't believe how good Xavier and I were. He kept saying, "You're cheating. You're cheating." "No one is safe in Mario Kart," Xavier said, giggling like a child as he smashed me with a red shell. "You bastard," I replied, and Pete started laughing. I don't even remember who won. It felt good to relax for the first time in a long time. I wasn't fighting anybody, I wasn't on a vendetta, and I wasn't behind the control of my ship. It felt nice. Maybe Claire was right. Before I knew it, it was 9 o'clock. We were outside, sitting by the fire pit, making s'mores. After a couple more drinks, Pete was showing me his comics and telling me about his favorite superheroes. An hour or two went by, and Pete slumped in his chair, asleep. Xavier and I just kept talking. Xavier insisted I spend the night. After all, he and Pete had set up the guest room. We let the fire die down. "Can you get Pete?" Xavier asked. "Yeah, I think I can carry him." "Where is his room?" "Third door down." "It says Pete on the door," Xavier said. "Got it," I replied. I got Pete to his bed, laid him down, and began tucking him in. Before I could say goodnight, Pete was halfway awake, trying to make himself comfortable. He looked at me. "Uncle Jack." "Yeah, buddy?" I replied. "Why do people die?" he asked. "Oh, Pete, that's a long answer," I said, sitting on his bed. "Why can't we live forever? Why does Mommy have to die?" "Well, buddy, that's just a part of life. We're only given so much time, and we don't know when our time's going to be. In that time, some of us learn to live, love, and enjoy every moment we have. It's not perfect, but if we lived forever, I think it would be boring. Knowing that you live forever might mean you never take any chances in life, and where's the fun in that? Life should be an adventure. Yes, it sucks losing those you love, your mom, for example. But we cherish them and remember, no one is truly gone. Their memories always live on within you and anyone you share them with." Pete just looked at me. "Mommy said you would know just what to say," he said. "Your mom is a smart woman," I replied. "I think it's time for sleep, buddy." Pete yawned in agreement. "Good night, Uncle Jack." I walked out of Pete's room, looking for the bathroom. I forgot where it was again. "Jack, is that you?" Xavier asked. "Yeah, brother. I'm looking for the toilet." "It's the door on the left," Xavier replied. "Ah, got it," I said. I did my business and walked out of the kitchen to see if Xavier needed any help with putting the food away. He was busy making a plate of food. "Is Pete asleep?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. I had to explain death to him. Xavier stopped. "Please tell me you didn't scare the shit out of him." "No." I gave him a good answer. "How do you think he's going to handle what I said?" Xavier made another plate of food, tossed it in the microwave, and then handed it to me. "I don't know," he replied. "He seems to be handling it well so far, better than us anyway." Xavier grabbed 2 drinks. "Claire's been trying to distract him, but I think he knows. I was never cut out to be a father." "I'm doing the best I can, Jack," he said. "He's going to be fine." "I think Claire saw that," I replied. "I hope so, Jack." "I hope so," Xavier said, taking a swig. This came out great." "Yep, you're still a shitty cook," I replied. "Fuck you, Jack," Xavier said, and we both just laughed, enjoying each other's company until we went to bed. I don't even remember what time I fell asleep. I looked at my watch. 10:30 a.m. I heard someone walking around in my room. I poked my head out. It was Pete, holding a tray of food. "Uncle Jack, wake up. Wake up," he said. "You can't sleep all day." "Yes," I replied. "I'm an adult." "Nope, you can't. Uncle James said you had to get up and have breakfast," Pete said. I put the covers over my head. "You tell Uncle James." Just then, I heard his voice. "Tell Uncle James what?" "Get your ass up, Jack." He slapped me with a pillow. "You both suck," I replied. "This food better be good." "I made it," Pete replied. I pulled the covers off my head. "You made me breakfast?" I said to Pete. "Why didn't you say so? It's gonna be better than somebody else's cooking." I looked at Xavier. "Next time you can starve," he said. I sat up in bed and began to eat. "Oh, we've got bacon, sausage, toast, eggs, and a bowl of cereal, chocolate puffs. Yum. You're quite the chef, Pete. Your mom has taught you well." Pete smiled. Traitor, Xavier said. Hey, is he going to be okay with you for a little bit? I have to make a call to the office. I'm sure, I replied. Only cool kids a lot anyway. Pete smiled again, engrossed in his comics. I finished up breakfast and grabbed a shower. I looked at my phone and saw I missed a few messages, one from Malcolm and one from Eb. I clicked on Malcolm's message. The presentation is all set for the board of directors, waiting for their decision. Good luck, Jack. This could change the world. Next, I clicked on Eb's audio message. Hey, Mr. Man. Malcolm presented the cancer vaccine to the board of directors. It seems promising, but it's going to be a couple of days before the board can vote yes or no. There are a lot of financials to go over, not to mention FDA and government clearances. I replied to Eb, what do you think about the board passing it without me overruling their decision? Eb replied, so far, everything looks good. Malcolm spoke from his heart. The board was pleased with the promising and accurate results. Have faith, man. I replied, indeed. Thanks, brother. Let me know if anything comes up. Before I knew it, it was noon. Xavier was on the phone with a client, while Pete was invested in his video game. He looked up from the screen. You're not leaving yet, Uncle Jack. It's almost time for lunch, and you promised we would play Legos. We did play Legos, I said, glancing at the Star Wars Death Star model. It was only halfway completed. Sorry, buddy. I forgot how big the model was. Well, can we complete a little bit more before you go? Xavier finished his call and walked into the living room. You're not leaving yet, Jack. We got plenty of food, he said. Yeah, I guess, I replied. Plus, I promised this guy we would try to finish the Death Star. We grabbed plenty of leftovers and worked on the Death Star for a few hours. Xavier seemed happier than usual. Maybe this was what he needed. Going to the hospital daily just to watch his dying sister can take a toll on you mentally and physically. I should tell him, but no, it was not the right time. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. We were almost finished, but there was still quite a bit more to go. I looked at Xavier. I better get my ass moving. I have some company things to take care of. Eb's keeping me updated on something important. I placed an order for a car, and we said our goodbyes for now. Pete looked disappointed that I was leaving. Who could blame the kid? He needed as much happiness as he could get. These last couple of hours had probably been the best he'd had in a long time. I was heading back to the hotel. It was almost 5:30 when my phone began to ring. It was Claire. Hello, I replied. It's Claire. I'm aware of that, love, I said. What's up? Could you come by the hospital? I have something important I want to discuss. Something important? I said, feeling a little nervous. Yeah, sure, I can be there. I'm in an autonomous car. Let me update the route. It's saying I'll be there in 45 minutes. Okay, see you soon, she said. When I got to the hospital, I needed to pee, so I decided to take care of that before heading up to Claire's room. I knocked on her door. Come in, she said. She was relaxing in the window nook and busy making something. She looked at me and said, Jack, you came, in a happy voice. Yeah, why wouldn't I? I replied. I was just leaving Xavier, planning on heading back to the hotel for the night. She smiled. Pete told me he was hoping you'd never leave. With Xavier always working, he never gets to play like usual. We hired Sarah when my treatment started getting a little more severe. We needed someone to watch Pete. She's been a godsend. She already has 2 kids of her own, but she's always helping out. Xavier tried helping her with her bills, but she declined. Someone like that you don't find often, I said. I pulled up a chair and sat next to Claire. So, what's up, love? You wouldn't call me here just for a quick chat, I said. Claire looked at me. You don't want to see my beautiful face, she said. My time is running short, Jack, and you owe me all the time in the world. The other day, she leaned up, placing her leg on the floor. When you did whatever you did in that trance, I saw your whole life, and that time you spent at the monastery. It got me thinking. I wanted to learn more. I asked Laura to talk with me the other night. She told me about biotics, what they are capable of, and why Element Zero is so important. But most importantly, she told me what you're capable of. Jack, you're not just a biotic, you're Vanguard class. You mastered your skills. I thought about what I saw at the monastery. I could see all the hardships you went through, finding yourself and understanding your capabilities. That's when I went looking. I looked at her and took a deep breath. I said it before she could even utter the words. The Vanguard promise. She looked at me and grabbed my hand. So it's true, Jack. There is an unbreakable promise, she said curiously. I looked at her with my head down. Yes, I replied. Claire, I beg of you, don't make me do this. She almost seemed taken aback. I thought you would be more open to the idea, she said. Do you know what the Vanguard promise is? I asked.
Claire looked at me.
I pretty much got the gist of it, she said. I've been reading about it all night. It's an unbreakable promise. The person makes an item like a necklace, trinket, or bracelet and gives it to a biotic. The item must contain genetic material, such as blood or hair, for the bond to be pure. The only biotics that can accept the promise must be Vanguard. The host, being you, allows my soul to connect to your soul in return, giving the Vanguard extra power and strength on their journey. Until they complete each promise requested of them, failing to do so may shorten the Vanguard host's lifespan, and their death will be agonizing and painful. Claire, why would you ask this of me? I said. She stopped for a moment, picking her words carefully. Jack, I thought about it. Dying fucking scares me. What have I done with my life? Is that a question I asked?
Claire looked at me.
I don't know how you want me to answer that.
Claire, the life, the D.
We do the best we can. Easy for you to say, Claire said. You're not the one fucking dying. You make life sound meaningless. What the fuck do you want me to say, Claire? What do you want me to say? This isn't a fucking fairy tale. Claire, I've killed. I've seen and felt death. I'm a fucking monster, a piece of shit. No matter how many good deeds I do, Hell's Gates is where I'm going to end up. Now you're asking me to make an unbreakable promise, so I can repent for my bad deeds? I know who and what I am. There's no changing that. Claire just stared at me and listened. She didn't even flinch. She had already made up her mind. Jack, she said, then why do you continue to help and fight for others? I let out a deep breath and said, because everyone deserves a tomorrow, a little hope. Many aren't fortunate enough to get that. If I'm able to help one person, who knows what they will be able to do with just a little hope? The great Jack Wesley has a heart, Claire said. Jack, I know you'll never stop until this is over. I saw that. I saw your life. She pulled out a bracelet that she had woven. It had a beautiful blue and purple pattern. I could see her hair strands woven within it. Claire, I replied, I don't know if I'm strong enough. Claire grabbed my hand. Jack, this isn't all about you, she said. I looked at her and said, I know. She continued, Jack, I'm not ready to die. I'm terrified of the unknown. Please, I'm begging you, grant me this wish. I looked at her, tears in her eyes. Claire, it's gonna be okay, I said. Claire stood up, angrily and defeated, as if I hadn't even heard her cry for help. Jack, what the fuck? It's like you didn't even hear me, she said, throwing her arms into the air and walking around the room. I looked at her. Claire, I heard everything you said. This is a lot for me to handle. Not many biotics, to mention Vanguard class, do this willingly. I've never done this before. I don't even remember the rest of the conversation. I was told to leave. I got back to the hotel, grabbed a shower, and told myself to meditate. I sat in the middle of the room and began to go deep within myself. I let my mind relax and drifted off to sleep. I was loudly woken up by my phone. It was Eb. What the fuck? What time is it? Hello, Jack.
Good morning, man.
Sorry to wake you up so early. I looked at the wall clock. It was 5:30 a.m. and my heart was still racing. You know I wouldn't wake you if it wasn't important. The board has made its decision. Also, we got clearance from the FDA. It passed. I asked. Eb replied, yeah, the board needs you to officially speak about it publicly. I think a video would be best. When do they need it? I asked. Eb replied, as soon as possible would be nice. I would say make it look as genuine as possible and speak from your heart. Once I finally woke up and got room service, I was emailed the board's decision and recommendation notes. We still don't have a name for the vaccine. Hit these bullet points. Say T. The video was officially uploaded at 10 a.m. Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Wesley. I am the CEO and chairman of Open Mind Industries. Today, we have wonderful news. We are announcing a new vaccine to prevent a certain type of cancer. I talked about all the bullet points that had been prepared. I had to come up with a name. Everyone sent me a couple of suggestions a few minutes before I started recording. I thought about Claire yesterday and the word hope. I don't know why that word hit me so hard, but we are calling it hope. I just said it with such calmness. Everyone deserves a tomorrow. Everyone deserves a little hope in their lives. Best of all, the vaccine will be free for all, regardless of your income level. Most importantly, I would like to thank Claire, Xavier, Dr. Laura, Chris, Dr. Malcolm Cole, and the OMI research and development team. All of your hard work has not gone unnoticed. Thank you. I ended with, keep an open mind. The next thing I remember, I was getting phone calls from media outlets for interviews, which took up most of my day. I kept checking my phone, hoping to receive a message from Claire, but I didn't get anything. I felt a small pit in my stomach begin to grow. I stopped the interviews around 6 p.m. and sent Claire a text. No response. I felt like shit, so I decided maybe I should go work out and clear my head. ADD and anxiety are a motherfucker. I finished my workout around 8 p.m. and still no reply from Claire. I grabbed dinner and also ordered a milkshake. I needed something sweet. I relaxed on the couch and began to meditate again. This time, I thought about my journey, the past, and the present. I thought about the persona I have become. The Archangel, the man who helps. I reflected on what I learned at the monastery and what my masters taught me about being biotic, understanding the advantages and disadvantages. I had to learn to control my temper and my rage, and to find myself. Then I remembered the night I almost collapsed one of the temples in a fit of rage. I never asked for this. I was an outsider who didn't understand the way of the Vanguard. I wasn't pure. I remember when I arrived, I had to stand outside the monastery for 4 weeks, finding my own food and water. This was their way of testing you. Of the 20 people who arrived, only 3 of us stayed. It was exhausting. My anger and rage kept me going. I was determined. I didn't need their approval. For 3 years, I trained just to make it to the trials. It was so intense. It took everyone multiple tries. I later found out that the trials could not be completed without failing. You had to accept failure. You had to accept that you were not perfect. My master refused to give up on me. We would meditate nightly together. Jack, find yourself. My head was too cloudy. One night, I just let go. The calmness overtook me. Everything became so clear, who I was and what I was. I could finally control my power. The hardest part was leaving the monastery, but it was something I had to do on my pilgrimage to my rebirth. 2 years later, I started OMI. I became a bounty hunter and began my vendetta to hunt down the 6. I soon learned that there were more than 6 people. They were a syndicate, constantly recruiting. They would never stop. I needed to cut off the heads of the snakes one by one. I didn't just come back to help Claire. That last bounty told me where the first member of the 6 was. He was in Japan, a corporate head of a very large company. I felt vibrations and came out of my meditation. What now? I thought. I looked at my watch. It was Dr. Chris. I immediately answered. Hello. I replied. Jack, it's Laura. It's about Claire. What about Claire? It's almost time. We're not sure how long she has left. Her body has begun to shut down. Today was not a good day for her. Shit, I replied. Should I head to the hospital? No, Laura replied. She's sleeping. We had to sedate her. The pain is too much. I would recommend coming in the morning. She was asking for you. Will do. I'll do what I can to make her comfortable. Thanks, Laura, I replied. I'll be there in the morning. Jack, before I let you go, Laura said, did Claire ask you to make a promise? I've been making lots of them, I said. No, Jack, that's not what I meant, she said. A certain type of promise, the Vanguard promise. She was mumbling about it all day. It's just something you should consider. I will, Laura, I said. Thank you for everything. The rest of the night, I began to ponder. Claire's last days were finally here. I thought this would be easy. I had seen more death than I care to think about, except the person who was dying was the one I loved. I began to reminisce about our time together. The first time we made love, we were both virgins. It happened a few weeks after Xavier and I got into a fight. Claire was nervous, and so was I, but somehow it felt right. It was, in essence, magical. It's hard to describe the feelings I had for her. It was love. There are no other words to describe it. I began to think about what I could have done to prevent any of this. In my head, I could hear Claire saying, "When life gives you lemons, make lemonade." She was right. It was late when I lay down and began to drift off to sleep, thinking about her. I fell into a deep meditative state. My thoughts drifted to her. Would she join me one last time? I could feel her consciousness. I began to hear a warm, familiar voice. I could smell her, and then I felt a hand grab mine. A hand materialized, holding me. I looked up, and there she was. "Jack," she smiled. "Can we dance?" "Please, Jack, just one more time." I looked at her. Of course. We danced until we could no longer. Claire looked at me and said, "My time is running out, Jack." "I know," I replied. "I wish I could have done so much more." She put her head on my chest. "It's okay, Jack. It's going to be okay." She pulled her head away from my chest and looked into my eyes. "Jack, promise me." I stopped. The environment around us began to change. We were now floating in the abyss. I don't know how to describe it. It was warm, with bluish-purple lightning all around us. It was spectacular. I took a deep breath, then exhaled. I looked at Claire. "What promises do you ask of me?" Claire looked at me, her eyes full of tears. "Promise me you'll do your best to help the innocent and less fortunate on your journey." "I promise," I replied. "Promise me to be genuine, no matter what it takes, and to complete what you started with a 6. Jack, when this is done, I want you to live again. What's done is done. You must truly let go of the past." "I promise," I replied. Then Claire took a deep breath. "This promise is the most important to me, Jack," she said. "Promise me." Her eyes filled with even more tears. "Jack, I want you to love again. Truly love again, not only with your mind but with your heart. Do that for me. Promise me." I looked into her tearful eyes. "I promise," I replied. I looked at her, and the environment around us began to glow blue and purple. I could feel it changing my body. I looked down at my left wrist. There was something there that hadn't been there before. Claire's bracelet that she had made the other day. It began to tighten itself around my wrist. Claire started to fade away. I saw a giant flash of blue and purple, and everything went dark. The next morning, I woke up feeling as if I'd been drinking. I tried to get up, but immediately sat right back down. I tried to recall last night. It was real. I had connected to Claire. I remembered the promises that she had asked me to make. My phone began to ring. It was Xavier. "Hello," I replied. "Hey man, it's Xavier. I don't know if Laura talked to you or Malcolm or whoever, but I think it's time. Can you be here at the hospital?" "Yeah, brother," I replied. "Laura told me. Let me just take a shower and get some breakfast." "Can you skip breakfast?" Xavier replied. "Claire wants us to have breakfast together."
"Wait a minute," I said.
"She's up and moving around?" "Yeah, it's the craziest thing. The other night, she was loopy and out of it. This morning, she woke up like nothing was wrong. All sunshine and rainbows. Maybe it's the news about the vaccine. I don't know." "Jack, just get here when you can," Xavier said. "All right, brother. I'll be there as soon as I can." I don't even remember what time I arrived at the hospital, but there they all were, sitting and having breakfast waiting for me. Xavier, Pete, and a few of Claire's friends. It seemed like a gathering. Laura, Malcolm, and everyone else saying their final goodbyes. It didn't seem sad. Everyone was cheerful, sharing memories and talking. Claire appreciated it. You could see her soaking up every minute of it. She immediately noticed me. "Jack," she said, her smile growing. Everyone turned to greet me. This was a day of celebration. Jack, have you had breakfast?
Claire asked.
I replied, no. Xavier called me and wanted me to get over here as quickly as possible. Good.
Come, she said.
I was immediately handed a chair and a plate. There was plenty of food, quite the spread. I had waffles over easy eggs, some hash, a few tortillas, orange juice, and some warm milk tea to wash it down. Everyone was talking about the vaccine, among other things. Claire's passing would not be in vain.
They just talked and reminisced.
She and Laura were discussing something. Claire seemed happy about whatever it was. Of course, Claire insisted that we watch a few movies. This was her day. The lineup consisted of movies she loved. Then came the last movie. It was one of my favorites, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Jack Skellington finally found love and someone who understood him. Great movie. The day was winding down. It was about 5 p.m. when Claire asked to speak to everybody one-on-one to say her final goodbyes. I began to think this seemed very well planned. We did as she requested. I saw Laura and Malcolm outside the room and just wanted to thank them for everything. They were discussing something about Claire. Everything's all set, Laura said. It should be easy and painless, as she requested. I spoke up. What should be easy and painless?
Jack.
I didn't see you there, Laura said as they both looked at me. We think Claire should tell you. Tell me what? Are you guys planning on drugging her? Malcolm took a deep breath. Jack, he said, it was her wish. Then it dawned on me. Claire had this all planned. This day was so perfect. She thought of everything, and I wondered what gave her the idea. I mean, it was her decision to make. The cancer had taken a toll on her. I couldn't blame her for going out on her own terms. It was her decision to make. I heard my name. Xavier waved me over to the door. You're the last one she needs to see. Funny, I thought. I thought you would be the first one. I replied, no, family first, brother. I'm nobody, but an old boyfriend. I probably gave her bad memories. Xavier slapped me on the shoulder. Then remind her of the good ones, he said. I walked into the room, and the door closed behind me. The lighting seemed inviting. Claire was sitting in the window nook, looking out the window. Hello, love, I said. She turned her head and looked at me with a smile. Jack, she said warmly, come sit next to me. I walked over and grabbed a chair. I looked out the window, and the sky was beautiful.
Such a warm day.
It was orange with red, and the clouds were just right. It had just rained, and I could see a rainbow beginning to form. You couldn't ask for a better view. She grabbed my hand. Jack, could we dance one more time? I looked at her. I'm still fucking horrible, I admitted. Me too, she replied, but that never stopped us. I shrugged in agreement. She put her feet on the floor. I stood up. I only had one arm available, as I was using my crutches today. I should have thrown on the leg braces. I didn't know this would be a special occasion. Claire looked at me. Hold me, she
said.
So I squeezed her tight with my left arm. No, she replied. She grabbed my right hand and tossed my crutch aside. You know, I might fall, I said. That's okay. If we fall together, she reassured me. I was holding onto her hips, and we began to sway. There was no music, only us. She put her head on my chest and began to hum. As we swayed, we started moving around the room steadily. She kept squeezing me tighter and tighter. I like that sound, she said. What sound? I replied. Your heartbeat, she said. It's so soothing. I replied. She lifted her head from my chest. Jack, I have something for you. She let go of me and reached for something on the pillow in the window nook. She walked back over to me, and I knew what it was immediately. The bracelet. I asked. I made this, Jack. Last night, you made a promise to me. I looked at her and said, Indeed, I did, and I intend to keep it. She grabbed my left hand and began to place the bracelet around my wrist. I could feel it tightening as it started to glow because of the biotic properties in my DNA. Jack, she said, I'm scared. I know, I replied. I've never done this before. She looked at me, at my hands, and kissed me one last time. I think it's time. Wait, how do you know? I asked. Claire looked at me with a smile. No one told you? Told me what? I asked Malcolm and Laura to help me end my life peacefully, on my terms. I took sedatives. They are slowly shutting down my body. A few hours ago, Laura and Malcolm came to keep an eye on everything. It was my wish. I didn't want my death to be painful, and I didn't want anybody to cry over me. This is my decision. Cancer can go fuck itself. This was my decision, mine. I can't blame you, I said. I'm feeling a little dizzy. She said, Can you help me to the bed? Of course, I replied. Anything else? When she got comfortable, she said, Can you bring everybody in? I want to see their faces one more time. Of course, I replied. A few moments later, everybody was standing around, talking to Claire. Everything was cheerful and peaceful. Pete was lying next to her. Xavier, can you take Pete? I'm getting tired. Claire gave Pete a big kiss. Claire's breathing became heavier and Laura and Malcolm began checking her vitals. They both looked at Claire. It's okay. It's doing what it's supposed to do, Laura said. Claire smiled, looking at everybody. I'm gonna take a little nap now. I love you all. From what I was told, those were Xavier's last words. I don't remember what happened. Everyone said I collapsed after Claire fell asleep for the last time. I woke up hooked up to machines. I had been knocked out for 4 days. I woke up to Laura checking my vitals. Jack, you're still with us, she said, pointing to my left wrist. And I believe somebody else's too. Malcolm, I said, realizing what they meant. I didn't realize you made the Vanguard promise. You should have told us. You're lucky. You could have cracked your head open. How long was I out? I asked. For days, Laura said. Some Vanguards never wake up. Some are left in permanent stasis comas. Some souls don't take to the hosts very well. I'm glad you were able to pull through. Yours and Claire's bond seems to be very strong. The Vanguard promise should not be taken lightly. Your power is now more amplified than before. It's going to be a while before you're back to your full strength. It seems like she's gotten comfortable already. You should rest, Jack. I'll discharge you tomorrow. Laura, I asked, did Claire pass away?
Peacefully, she said.
You don't remember? I remember her saying she was very tired. She took a deep breath, and then I felt a sudden surge of energy. I blacked out. Laura stared at me. You blacked out and went into shock. Your heart stopped, and your body began to seize up. You've been in a coma for the last 4 days. You should have bloody told me and Malcolm. If we weren't there, Jack, you probably would have died too. Like I told you, not many Vanguards make the unbreakable promise. It could have cost you your life. Get some rest, Jack. I'm floating. What is this place? It's the abyss, my subconscious. I can hear a voice. It sounds familiar, very familiar. Jack, I don't know if you can hear me or understand me. It's Amanda. Jack, I know that voice. I can't hear you. I have to give her a sign. I begin thinking, and my brainwaves start to fluctuate as my pulse increases very slightly. I wonder if she saw any of it. I heard a calming voice say, Jack, it's okay. Claire materialized in front of me.
She saw, Jack. She saw.
Listen to her words. I let out a deep breath. A calmness came over me. Amanda says, Good night, Jack. Sweet dreams. I let out another deep breath. As Amanda turned away, I heard her say, Maybe after this, you can take me on that date. I owe you that much. Amanda says, I love you. Listen to her words, Jack. Claire disappeared, and I was left with a warm, calming feeling. I looked down at my left wrist. The bracelet began to glow. This must be what true love feels like. I began to relax and listen to her words. I faded back to sleep. Author's notes, thank you to everybody who is still reading this chapter. Took a long time. It took a lot out of me. I wanted to make sure Claire had a proper send-off also. If a certain someone is reading this chapter, happy birthday 927. So if there's any spelling or grammar issues found, this is already over 10,000 word. I did proofread and rewrite.